Um, okay, I'm going to try to explain this essay that on the blood donation and body parts, etc., donating pieces. So in this was the work for this week. Um, the essay 3 assignment is on in the previous week, week 10. Let me just go over the other things that you're going to do. There's some information about revising for style to make something sound better, be more vivid, read better. So the idea was once you get this draft done, and it's a rough draft, remember, I'm going to make some comments on it and you're going to be able to do a revision of that. Look for a couple sentences, for it says 3 sentences that you can revise from this draft. This is not, if you can't figure out how to do that, don't worry about it. I can point out some sentences that could use some revision once I see the draft. So you can do this a little bit later. I'm pointing at the screen, but I know you can't see my finger. This information. So read about this information about revising for style. So that is not necessarily because something's grammatically wrong, but because it doesn't sound as good as it could. So if you read something out loud and you see things that that you stumble over, or you could get some feedback from somebody else if have them read it and see if there are some sentences that they think that aren't quite clear or could use some revision. And then there's some information about analyzing a text. And then there's some reading to do about work, which is going to be the next unit. But you don't need to get that done this week. You can work on that next week as well. So the essay draft is the main thing. So let me go back to week 10 and get that open. So I revised thank you for the feedback about that assignment being difficult. When I read it over, I realized you were right. And so I revised it to try to make it more to simplify it or make it more clear. I wouldn't say simplify it. Make it more clear what you needed to do and to give some more direct direction about how to do that. So let me see. This is okay. So this is the new assignment here. So there were these articles for you to look at. And as you read the articles, be thinking about the question, should people be able to sell their body parts? Some of the writers seem to say yes, and they have some reasons for that, and some of the writers say no. So you want to find, of these, so you've got 6 articles to choose from. As you read over the articles, I suggested making a chart. So what are the reasons that people say you should be able to sell blood and organs and that sort of thing, and what are the reasons they say you shouldn't be able to? And just, develop make a list of those reasons, and you might, it'll make it a little bit easier when you come to write your essay if you then, indicate which article said that. So if you have some reason about, because it's going to save lives. So I would put in parentheses or just next to that reason, what are the different articles? You could use the title of the article or the author of the article, just something so you can identify it, or you can number the articles 1 to 6 or whatever it is. Then once you look at those 2 lists of reasons, see how if they're reasons that connect. Now the example that I would give, I've had students in the past write about zoos. Should zoos be abolished? So they read some articles that saying, yes, zoos should be abolished, and what would some of those reasons be? Because they're not safe, the animals are mistreated. Some people could say that they're entertainment, they're not educational. Some people could say, the mistreatment of animals is really a key one. So the people that say we should have zoos would say that zoos are educational. Well, what does the other side say? So if somebody says zoos are educational, what would the opponents, what would the people who think zoos should be abolished say? They might say zoos aren't education, they're entertainment at the expense of the animals. So they could say people don't really learn anything from zoos, they just walk around and look at the animals and they don't really learn about the animals themselves. There are some signs up there that have some information, but nobody reads them. So those would be things that different issue. That's one issue that sides disagree about. Are zoos educational or not? Then there might be something about how are the animals treated. The people that say zoos should be abolished would say that animals are mistreated. The people that say that zoos, we should still have zoos, would say that the zoos do a lot of things to keep the animals. They do something called enrichment, where the animals are given different things to play with and occupy themselves, and so they aren't so bored. They could say that zoos these days have much larger enclosures than they used to, that they try to have something that's comfortable for the animals, whatever reason. So that issue of how are the animals treated, the people who oppose zoos would say they were mistreated, whereas the people that that want to keep zoos would say that the animals are that there are rules and regulations for the zoos to follow. Yes, there are some zoos maybe that don't keep the animals in as clean and nice of cages as they should, but that that most zoos that are approved, there's an organization called the AZA, I think that's American Zoos and Aquariums, or Association of Zoos and Aquariums, something like that. They have a list of rules that zoos should follow to take care of the animals properly. So the people that support the zoos would say that. And then there could be something about conservation. Some people would say that the people that approve of zoos would say that the zoos do a lot to help conservation of animals throughout the world, not just in keeping the animals alive in the zoos, but they go out and do field studies that help, and they educate the public about conservation efforts and all that. The people that oppose zoos would say that that zoos spend a little bit of time doing that, but it doesn't really have much of an impact. So that's something that they disagree with. So if we look at that issue so here I was doing some brainstorming about some possible topics. Should zoos be abolished? We've got 3 issues. Are they educational or not? How are the animals treated? And do zoos help conservation efforts? So those are 3 sort of sub-issues, smaller issues within that big topic of should zoos be abolished. So that'll give you some sections of an essay. So one thing, so you're going to have some introduction about the question of whether zoos should be abolished. Then you're going to have body paragraphs. One of them will be about education, and you'll say something like, while the people who favor zoos say that zoos offer many educational opportunities, the people opposed to zoos disagree and say that zoos are primarily entertainment. And then you'd have some information from the sources, some specific information. So if we say zoos are educational, you'd have to talk about what sorts of education do they provide, and maybe there have been some studies done. What evidence do the articles use to prove that the zoos are educational versus on the other side that they're just entertainment? So you're going to use the reasons and the evidence from the sources to make these paragraphs. So if we go down here, so you read through, you're going to organize and figure out what these questions, these smaller questions, do the 2 sides disagree about. The people that think that people should be able to sell their body parts, and the people that think that decide that people shouldn't be able to sell their body parts. And see if you can find ways that they pair up. You also could look at, are there things that they agreed about? That could maybe go at the beginning. So this talks about structuring your essay. Now this is a complicated essay, so the rough draft, I don't expect everything to be all perfect. Just try to get your ideas down of the reasons that the two sides say. So you're going to have an introductory paragraph that talks about the controversy about organ and body part sales. So as technology has grown and we've it's been possible to transplant organs, then there's the question of how can we do that ethically? Should people donate these organs, or should they be able to sell them? So some kind of introduction about that people disagree about this issue. Now, in one or two of the articles, it gives a little bit of historical background. There was, I think, the Organ Transplant Act, I'm not sure exactly what it was called, passed in maybe I don't remember if it was this 1985, sticks with me. So you could give a little bit of historical background. And talk about the disagreement. Then you're going to have a thesis statement that answers the question, why do people disagree? So if we're to go back to the zoos, we might have a thesis statement that says the main areas of disagreement in this issue of whether zoos should be abolished are the educational value of zoos, the way the animals are treated, and whether zoos promote conservation efforts. So we're giving those three main reasons for disagreement that we thought of as we were reading the articles and making a chart and, sort of seeing what pairs up. Okay, so that's the introductory paragraph. You may want to include a little information about background, or you may want to talk about why people agree, what are the things they agree about. But then you're going to have your series of body paragraphs. There was some information about whether being able to sell body parts would save lives. There's information about, you can see from the title here, ending violence. So look in that article. What do they say about being able to sell organs, ending violence? What is that all about? This red market, that makes it sound like it's negative. So what are the issues that article talks about? Paid organ donation, the case against. So what are the reasons there? There may be information about one of the articles, I think the Human Commodity, talks about how people should be able to sell their body parts because it's their body. They should be able to do whatever they want with their body. So, some organs you can't sell while you're still alive, like a heart, but a kidney, potentially you can live with one kidney, so you could sell a kidney, or you could sell maybe a portion of your liver. I'm not quite sure what the science is about that. So figure out what the different paragraphs might be here. One might be about saving lives. One might be about violence. One might be about the right to control over your own body. And then use the information, the evidence that each of the sides uses, to talk about that. Now, you don't have to use all 6 of those articles. You just need to use at least 3 of them. So find the best 3 that cover most of the reasons that you want to talk about. And then you're going to have a conclusion that takes your position after reading the articles and looking at what the 2 different sides say. What do you think? Do you think people should be able to sell their organs? So that's the structure of the essay. Then you have to, as you're using this information from the sources, you have to say where you got the information from. So here's information, there's information here about how to do in-text citation with a spelling mistake there that I'll try to remember to fix. About if you use direct quotations, you'd copy it word for word with quotation marks, put parentheses after it with the author's name from the article from which that you took the quotation. If you put the information in your own words, specific information that you get from one of the sources, not sue quotations, use quotations. You need to make sure it's in your own words, but then at the end of that sentence, you'll put parentheses and the title of the author of the article that you used. And then you need a works cited page. So the citation information, again, do the best you can for the rough draft, but remember, I'm going to get a chance to look at it before I put a grade on it. Okay, so I hope this helps. If you have specific questions about any part of it, feel free to send me an email. And then if you could try to get, get it in, over the week, by over the weekend is fine. I'm trying to catch up on some grading, but I hope to be able to look at the rough drafts next week, and then the final draft will be due when we come back from after, probably that next week when we're back after Thanksgiving break. Okay, I'm gonna end this, and let me know if you still have questions.